The notion of fail fast is, okay, yes, you can learn from one another's experiences and you can imagine this idea and think about its potential or some of its flaws. Or you could try and create some sort of really quick and easy kludgy representation of it and put it in front of the people that you actually expect to use it. And based on that, learn so much more quickly than you would from just sitting in a room and discussing it ad nauseum. Most often, organizations will get a smart group of people together when they want to explore an idea, and they'll put them in an echo chamber and basically have them discuss it to death.
What do you see as future trends around design thinking? If we got into a time machine and went out 3-4 years from now, what do you think we would see in terms of design thinking and how people are using it? A couple of challenges I'll put out to you is, one, really trying to understand what are the mindsets that block potentially embracing design thinking, right? So it's like, what are those mindsets where they prevent people from saying, okay, I'm going to embrace this? That's one. But then two, what does that journey look like to move a company from not embracing or understanding the value of design thinking to having a design thinking culture or innovation culture? So I'm curious about, what do you see as those steps in the journey, and how long does it usually take in your estimation or examples you've seen?
Yeah, great questions. So the first around mindsets, and I think it's helpful to make a point so that your listeners kind of understand where we're coming from on this. So design thinking, initially people thought it was all about product, right? So if you want to come up with a new market shifting product, something that's a major breakthrough, then here's the process you use, and you spin up a project and you go through this. And at the end of the day, you're going to have something that maybe it's not going to be like the major market breakthrough, but nonetheless, it's going to be a lot better than what you would have come up with otherwise. And it certainly is going to be differentiated from what your competitors are coming up with. And what folks like IDEO learned in time, and it was largely because of how their clients were pulling them, is that design thinking can be applied to a lot more besides products, right? It's the kind of thing that can be applied to services. It can be applied to things like environments. It can be applied to whole systems. And so you can use design thinking anytime you want to come up with a solution that's going to be better for people, right? Whatever sort of form that solution needs to take. Well, sort of in parallel to that awakening and that understanding, I think what's happened is that we've learned design thinking isn't just about projects, right? It's something that you don't have to reserve for that big project. These behaviors, these tools, these techniques, they can help in a number of different ways every single day. And so at ExperiencePoint, we refer to that as sort of the daily upgrades in behavior. And so that is kind of where we're coming from on this. And so when we talk about a culture of innovation, at ExperiencePoint, the way that we think about that is it's not just for the project practitioner, it's for everybody. It's for everybody that has to interact with people. You might be coming up with really tiny solutions in your day for those folks. You might be just trying to communicate ideas, and these tools that are now in your toolkit, design thinking ones, can actually assist with those types of activities. So coming back to your first question then around the mindsets that are appropriate in order to develop a culture where people feel they have the permission to use these tools and techniques and where they don't just need to kind of follow through and do their part within a process or a system. One of the ones that I wrote down here is understanding right out of the gates that maybe you don't know your user as well as you think you do. And this is a really challenging one because every day, and this happens in any environment, we have a system that's set up to work with our customers or with our users in a certain way. And that sort of reinforces our perceptions of who these people are and what they want. And what's really important is to recognize that it's not until you go out and you start watching these people either interact with your solutions or interact with other components of their day, you see them in context, do you really start to gain an appreciation of what it is that motivates them, what are the challenges they face, and what are the needs they have that maybe they can't even express, right? That they've just lived this life of radical accommodation of their environment to the point where they no longer see that they have a need with something. An example of that, and I'm stealing this one from David Kelly, he talks about people who go to the gas station to fill up their car. And if you were to ask them, what challenges do you have filling up your car? Most people would be like, it's not hard. I can do it. Not a problem, right? But then if you actually go watch people at a gas station, you see all the different challenges they have, right? Maybe they're driving in and they forget which side the gas tank is on, and then they got to get back in their car and turn around. Maybe it's even the lineup procedure with vehicles, right? Where you're coming in and you think, right? Oh, that spot's mine. But somebody else comes in from the other side and takes it. You pull up and you think you've lined up the hose with your gas tank, but you haven't. And you get out, you see that, and then what do you got to do? You get back in the car, you drive forward a few inches, right? So these are all the little irritants that we tend to accommodate. So if you were really trying to help these folks, you might design around those needs which they perhaps were unable to express. So that's the first thing in terms of mindsets, really understanding that you got to get out there to know your customers. The second mindset, and this is prevalent in corporate cultures, right? It's really around having proof that your idea is going to work, right? Most executives have an expectation that if you're coming with a proposal, you've done the analysis to basically show this thing is going to absolutely positively work out. And Roger Martin, who I'm trying to remember the name of his new organization, but he was the dean at the School of Business at the University of Toronto.
He wrote Design of Business, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. He has this great statement that the two words that kill innovation in any organization are prove it, right? Because when you're doing something that's incredibly new and different, it's very innovative, it means nobody's done it before. So how are you exactly supposed to prove that that thing is going to for sure be a success? If it's a me too type solution, then yeah, you could look at the competitor. You could say, look, this is the kind of success they have had. This is where the market's at. This is what we should expect. But with something that's really new and different, something that differentiates you, something that gives you the potential to blow your competitors out of the water, that's very difficult to prove. And so the design thinking methodology for providing evidence is to do the rapid prototyping and experimentation so that you learn your way into something where you're pretty certain this is going to be successful.
So it's really prove it. Instead of prove it, it's about providing evidence. Is that kind of, if I replay it?
You again, stealing from Roger Martin, it's like you have the ability through rapid prototyping to turn the future into the past. Okay, so your future projections, how are you going to get there? Well, you actually prototype, you experiment, you learn a lot, and then that gives you the evidence that you need, to your point, to move forward. And so you're trying to work with organizations in terms of mindsets to shift them from a sense that you need to have proof that an idea would work to accepting promise, like the promise of something in its nascent form. Yeah, so that's a big mindset shift for organizations as well.
So I'm curious, is you're touching on something that I hear in some of the workshops that we run now. The meme of fail fast, which is, it's a good mantra, and now it's become a little bit of a meme. But one of the companies or customers that I worked with was saying, this whole concept of fail fast may not be the best mindset in terms of how you approach design thinking, because some people take fail fast as mean just go out, do a lot of stuff, and don't worry about the results at all. Like, just fail fast, and it almost becomes a badge of honor, right? Like, I failed fast, yay! And I'm curious, I come from, when I started in design thinking, fail fast was you want to go through and iterate very quickly and use the failing to learn, right? Not so much, hey, I failed and look at me, I'm great. So I'm curious, how do you think about that fail fast mantra today? What does that really mean, and how should people think about it?
So I think the reason why fail fast still sort of resonates with me is because we're still at a point where most often organizations will get a smart group of people together when they want to explore an idea, and they'll put them in an echo chamber and basically have them discuss it to death, right? Right. And so the notion of fail fast is, okay, yes, you can learn from one another's experiences and you can imagine this idea and think about its potential or some of its flaws, or you could try and create some sort of really quick and easy kludgy representation of it and put it in front of the people that you actually expect to use it. And based on that, learn so much more quickly than you would from just sitting in a room and discussing it ad nauseum, right? And so that's why fail fast as a term still works. Now, to the challenge that you were describing, I think one of the antidotes is just simply having a very specific and rigid timeline associated with whatever exploration you're doing. And so that way, what you're sure of is that you're failing fast to learn for a certain part of that period, but at some stage you got to shift the gears and move into, all right, now based on all of this learning, what direction or directions do we really need to converge on so that we can move forward and try and create something that's going to ultimately be something we can put in front of our customers. And so with that sort of specific timeline, you can keep the team motivated and moving forward in the right direction without them just constantly spinning their wheels and celebrating failure only.
Yeah, and I know you, ExperiencePoint also focuses on change management, right? Experience change. We've primarily focused with experience innovation, meaning my company has used experience innovation. But I'm curious, how do you see companies using experience change to drive innovation culture or to just move people in a different direction? I'm curious how that works.
Yeah, that's such a cool question. The Experience Change Workshop actually has a couple of different benefits when it comes to innovation. So I'll describe one and then come back to your original question. So when we think about innovating in an organization, often the focus becomes the idea, right? What is that new cool thing we're going to try out and bring to market? What we sometimes neglect are the individuals in the organization, the stakeholders who are responsible for bringing that idea to life, implementing it in all the existing systems and processes that exist within the organization. And so the experience change tool, the workshop and the methodology that's there is really focused on understanding how do you work best with those stakeholders to bring them along on that journey so that you start with nothing, you come to an idea, and those stakeholders are really excited to implement that idea and make it successful. And by having their buy-in and their commitment, you get a lot further ahead and you end up with less sort of ideas that go nowhere. So that's sort of the benefit of the change management methods and tools and techniques that we try to help our clients understand. Now, if you look at creating a culture of innovation as a change, a lot of the principles that are part of the experience change methodology really come to play, right? So it's about doing the stakeholder mapping, understanding all the people who are in your organization, who's got something to lose if we make this type of change, who are the people who are going to be strong supporters, which folks are going to actively resist, and then thinking about how you can work with those different stakeholder groups to help them implement this new way of thinking and doing in the organization, i.e. get them to promote innovation practices and behaviors. So the change management work plays in a couple of different ways when we're talking about innovation.
That's pretty good. Well, thank you. So just starting to wrap up, just from a time standpoint. So this has been really good. I think I'm almost entranced because these are topics that I absolutely love talking about. Right? We use design thinking, digital fast forward. We use design thinking to help companies begin the journey on innovating new ideas, and then you're spot on. The challenge becomes not just, hey, here's a cool idea, but then beginning to implement and moving forward. So I think the change management piece is critical. And I'm curious from the standpoint of design thinking, right? It's such a hot buzzword now, right? You've been in the industry for a long time. I think in my world of IT, technology, digital transformation is really it's a hot buzzword. Till now you have software executives on keynote stages extolling the virtues of design thinking, right? And it's just like, okay, like they just discovered it. I think it's kind of funny to watch. But I'm curious from your standpoint, looking out to the future, like what do you see as future trends around design thinking? If we got into a time machine and went out 3-4 years from now, what do you think we would see in terms of design thinking and how people are using it?
Yeah, oh man, that's such a cool question. So one thing for sure is, as we were discussing before, design thinking for a while felt like sort of a methodology that was reserved for projects. And increasingly, I think organizations are waking up to the fact that, wow, if we want to awaken the latent problem-solving energy that exists across our organization, these tools and techniques are perfect for helping people get closer to the customer, right? Perfect for helping them kind of come up with ideas in a way that increases the likelihood that those ideas are going to be successful. It's great for engaging your workforce. And it's fantastic because what it does, when implemented as sort of a whole cultural way of doing things, is it increases the sensing surface area of your organization. So as customer needs are evolving, you now have people who are really close to those needs. They're not in some executive suite trying to make up their mind, right? It's people who are right there who feel they have permission, they're empowered to actually do something about these needs that are evolving. And you're able to help your organization stay ahead of the curve as a result. So I think design thinking, that's one way, that it will become something which is far more sort of a cultural practice than just a project piece. And then the other thing that I'd say to answer your question is that I think a lot of the techniques which we label as design thinking are techniques which are going to continue to live long after the term design thinking becomes less fashionable.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's like human-centeredness or being customer-centric. It's about having a growth mindset, a willingness to kind of just not accept things the way they are, but like actually learn and learn more to help you and your organization be more successful. So there are like a number of different things right now that we would say, well, that fits under the banner of design thinking, but the same practices, capabilities, skills, these are things which will continue to go on and help organizations that want to be future-proof or future-ready make sure they get there. So, yeah.
That's good feedback, because I think sometimes, I guess given a little bit more of my background than I probably should, is, I come from a business process management background. You think of Six Sigma and all of that. I don't say I'm a Six Sigma person, but I'm familiar with it. But now what's fascinating is, Six Sigma people are realizing like, oh, I need to upgrade my skills. And they're looking at design thinking as a way to upgrade. But I think they miss kind of what you're describing, which is it's not just a tool that you pull out when you're working on a project. It's actually a different way of thinking and even a way of operating culturally. I love that. And I think, what I think resonated with me that you said is the sensing surface, right? And actually when you said that, this is probably a horrible analogy, but it made me think of tentacles of an octopus. Right. It's like you're getting all these tentacles now going out into outside of your organization, whereas the tentacles before, if you think about, use the GE example, GE, big Six Sigma shop, it was all about the tentacles going into the organization. Let's understand, what are we doing operationally? How are we, being efficient? And now, moving deeper into the 21st century, right? It's more about what is going on outside of the organization, right? And so I love that analogy.
New technologies, disruptive business models, right? There are all these things that are going on, and even if they don't impact your organization directly right now, there's the potential for them down the road to have an impact, right? Everybody talks about, well, what's the Uberization of our industry? And it's only through having the people who are kind of closest to your customers and empowering those people to act, are you able to kind of stay ahead of what's going on. I'm sure you're familiar with this research, but it's about the S&P 500, where if you look, right, that used to be 50 years ago, the average lifespan of an S&P 500 firm is like 60 years. 60 years. And today it's down to 18. So it's like, what's happening? Well, these organizations that were once relevant to their customers suddenly are irrelevant and end up falling off that list. And so how are you going to maintain relevance? How are you going to deal with that relevancy risk? I think it's through a lot of the tools and techniques of design thinking.
Well, I know we're coming up on time. This has been excellent. So a couple of questions before we wrap up. One, if you could have any superpower, right? What would your one superpower be if you could have any superpower?
And it can't be the superpower to grant myself more superpowers?
Nope. We always have to put that asterisk there, right?
Oh, man. Oh, I guess, oh, boy. All right, so I'm going to answer this from a very sort of ExperiencePoint mission-driven perspective. It would be to help people understand that, I'm going to borrow from Obama, right? They're the ones they've been waiting for. Like, you can go to work every day and you can execute on the tasks that have been put in front of you, or you can sort of entertain the idea that maybe those aren't the right tasks to be working on to achieve the best outcome for customers. And if that's the case, then you're the one who has the ability to really get out there and understand, well, what is the need our customer has, and then take action to come up with something that's going to be better for them. So if I could wave a magic wand every time I was around clients, those that have maybe fallen into sort of a deep slumber at work where they're just like going through the motions, that's what I would love to be able to do. And I think we do that. It's just, it takes a little more time, and there's no pixie dust that I can just, sprinkle around and that'll do the trick.
I love it. I can see it. I can see the magic wand, and like, you have the powers with you. Reminds me a little bit of Eckhart Tolle. I think it's Eckhart Tolle, was like the guy that was looking for all this stuff. The gold is, you're sitting on the gold that you've been looking for, So thank you. This has been excellent. Maybe just last thing is, where can people find you on the internet, if you can give us your coordinates?
Sure. So it's www.experiencepoint.com. And you'll find our homepage there. And, if you want to reach out to me directly, Greg.Warman@experiencepoint.com, and I'd be happy to try and help in any way that I can.
Thank you. This has been really excellent. So I'm sure our audience will truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clay. Take care.